Greetings and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about archetypes of the spirit. In the cosmology of the Law of One, the archetypical mind, also known as the Egyptian tarot, can be thought of as the blueprint for third density incarnations in our part of the universe. If your third density incarnation was a video game, and in many ways it is, you could think of the archetypical mind as the programming or the software behind the video game. It consists of 22 images representing archetypes of the mind, body, and spirit. Today we're going to focus on the archetypes of the spirit. What are the archetypes of the spirit, and how can understanding them better help us in our spiritual growth and evolution? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups at the LNL Research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we meet on Zoom twice a week, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time, Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific Time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with Zoom links and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of our monthly Q&As with Jim McCarty. Just go to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to sit in on any of our Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty. As mentioned, our topic for today is archetypes of the spirit. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy, calling from Cornwall in Southwest United Kingdom, and thanks for having me. It's really lovely. I love joining in.
Thanks for being back. It's always lovely having you be part of the conversation. And Neely?
Hi, I'm Neely. I'm calling from Happy Valley, Oregon. I'm very excited to do this podcast with you guys today.
We're so excited to have you back. So looking forward to the conversation. And Guillermo?
Hi, I'm Guillermo, Montreal, Canada, but I was born in Peru. I happened to just come back from a Vipassana retreat, so I think this is great timing.
It's always great timing having you on. Thank you so much for making time to be with us today. Really looking to a conversation, forward to it. As always, want to remind our viewers that none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One or the archetypical mind. We're just normal wanderers like you trying to figure this shit out for ourselves. Anything that any of us say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything or everything that any of us say. If you are already familiar with the Law of One and the entity known as Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on podcast survey. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of the Law of One as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one, and that one thing is love. All of the readings that we're looking at today came to us through the process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, inner planes entities, and so on. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through. And in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at LNL Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, meaning they're subconscious or unconscious as if asleep, meaning they are not at all aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're speaking. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they are only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s and going up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latui at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness or different levels of reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples have been saying for centuries that they do. We refer to that as first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals. Clearly, a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of what we would refer to as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans, such as whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex. Again, it would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single group mind. Clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth and sixth density as whatever would be comparable quantum leaps above and beyond fourth density. There is obviously much more to be said on that, and if you're interested in it, check out our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, for now, suffice it to say, the entity known as Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the LNL research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They've been channeled every month since then, up to present day, by LNL research channeling team. You can find transcripts of those sessions at the LNL research conscious channeling library shown on your screen. Having said all that, if you have enjoyed watching Seattle Law of One podcasts, could you do me a huge favor and take the 3-minute podcast survey that's in the comment section? I've put a fair bit of time and effort into putting these videos together, and I would love to hear from viewers how long you've been studying the Law of One, about how many of these podcast episodes have you listened to or watched. What do you enjoy most about them? What do you enjoy least? Any suggestions for improvement? Do you enjoy the pop quizzes? Any feedback you care to share? That is literally all there is to it, so you can write as much or as little as you want, and I would much appreciate it. Having said that, let us start off by looking at what is the archetypical mind. We did do a podcast episode on that, including Andy, Neely, and Guillermo's panelists. If you are interested, check out that episode. Otherwise, if you think of your mind as an iceberg, your conscious mind would be like the tip of the iceberg above water, the part that you can see and have ready access to. You could think of the subconscious mind as the part of the iceberg just below water that you can't quite see, but you can catch glimpses of it, and you do see that it's there. You have some access to it. You can think of your unconscious mind as the bottom of the iceberg, the part that you cannot see, have no access to. Similarly, according to Law of One channelings, if you keep going deeper below the individual unconscious mind, you would get to what is referred to as the racial mind, the mind of your race, the collective unconscious of your race, whether it's from this planet or maybe another planet. Keep going below that, you would get to the planetary mind, the collective consciousness of planet Earth, the consciousness of Mother Gaia. Keep going deeper below that, you would reach what is called the archetypical mind, the collective mind of our particular part of the universe, whether it's solar system or galaxy, it's our local part of the universe. Keep going deeper and deeper and deeper below that, you would get to what's called the universal or cosmic mind, the mind of the one infinite creator or intelligent infinity. The archetypical mind consists of 22 images, 7 archetypes of the mind, 7 archetypes of the body, 7 archetypes of the spirit, plus the choice, which is kind of separate from the archetypes of mind, body, and spirit, but an important part of all 3 of those. We already did an episode on archetypes of the mind. Check that out if you're interested. We already did an episode on archetypes of the body. Check that out if you're interested. And today we're going to focus on the 7 archetypes of the spirit and the choice. So let us go ahead and start with a comment from Ra, session 77, question 23. Ra says, "We request that it constantly be kept before the mind as the candle before the eye, that each mind-body-spirit complex shall, and should, and indeed must, perceive each archetype, if you use this convenient term, in its own way. Therefore, you may see that precision is not the goal. Rather, quality of general concept complex perception is the goal. Meaning that they're intended that everybody sees each of these images in their own way. So the four of us here are just sharing what we see. It is entirely likely that you see different things, and that is good. Let's start by looking at Matrix of the Spirit. In the Raw Contact Session 80, Question 8, Ra said, "You may, with some fruitfulness, consider the possibilities of moonlight. You are aware that we have described the matrix of the spirit as a night. The moonlight, then, offers either a true picture seen in shadow or chimera and falsity. The power of falsity is deep, as is the power to discern truth from shadow. The shadow of hidden things is an infinite depth in which is stored the power of the one infinite creator. The adept, then, is working with the power of hidden things, illuminated by that which can be false or true. To embrace falsity, to know it, to seek it, and to use it gives a power that is most great. This is the nature of the power of your visitor, and may shed some light upon the power of one who seeks in order to serve others as well. For the missteps in the night are oh so easy." I've been talking long enough. Let's go straight to the panelists. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts, reflections on this passage?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to save it because for me this quote relates very closely to the moon card, the experience of the spirit. So I'll probably talk about it then. Can I pass it on?
Yeah, you bet. Neely?
Yeah, sure. So if we're looking at Matrix of the Spirit, the analogy of the iceberg that you gave before about the conscious, subconscious, unconscious mind also comes to mind because spirit is in the dark. Spirit lays in the dark. And the process of awakening is the process of becoming aware of spirit and pursuing the spiritual journey, right? So I think what Rai is saying, it's so easy to go either way, whether you see the thing that's in the darkness and there is a little bit of illumination, right? And the illumination might cast shadows that are not really there, and it might illuminate something that is there. And I see the entire journey of Archetypes of the Spirit. It's about distilling that and building the discernment to be able to distinguish between the truth and what is false.
Yeah, and that is a theme that we're going to see quite a few times more as we look at the rest of the archetypes. So, yeah, it's fascinating. And there are so many different aspects and dimensions and angles to look at it from. I'm looking forward to more of the conversation for sure. What do you think, Guillermo? Anything to add?
I think Roy is a poet. This is like Shakespeare, what we're reading here. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
I had a dream very shortly. Me and a guy we just met at the Vipassana. We found a thing. I'm not really sure what it is. If it was a person, a body, a thing. We're figuring out if it was dead or alive. And eventually the conversation became, is it good or evil? Is it like light or darkness? And eventually I became the thing and I stood up and I told them, are you really gonna criticize me for being a complex being? And I had flies all over my skin, like the Lord of the Flies. So the creator is a complex being. And I think there is a purpose for beginning in the shadows and then shedding light on it. There is a subtlety that is acquired through discovering and unveiling and making missteps along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think subtlety really is a key here, and they are really highlighting the fact that, yeah, both paths, service to self and service to others, start in the darkness, and we are all like groping in the moonlight, as they say in the next passage that I think we're going to see, where, yeah, as he said, it's easy to make missteps. It's really easy to mistake shadows, lights, truth, falsity, and chimera. I believe the word they used up here in the first paragraph, I believe, is some mythical creature that's kind of made up of different animal parts thrown together. So, Yeah, I think it is that falsity part that really struck me most in the second part, where they said to embrace falsity, to know it, to seek it, and to use it gives a power that is most great. I know from my perspective, I'm seeing that, yes, there are definitely people in positions of power in our political systems who clearly understand that concept. They have realized that, yeah, I'm pretty sure they know what they're saying is false, but they have realized that when you just keep saying it over and over and over, you can gaslight people into believing that it's true. And certainly there are other people who are equally convinced that the people that I'm referring to are speaking truth and that they're honest, good people and they're not lying. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, who are any of us to judge who's right and who's wrong? I think it is really up to each of us to make those discernments for ourselves as best we can and know that the law of responsibility doesn't need any of us to enforce it. We'll each have to deal with the choices that we made on our own, I think.
Yeah,
Any,
if
yeah,
I may add, I think it also refers to also on an even on a subtle energetic level the power of falsity, because they are referring to their visitor, which was a very advanced and very wise entity. So, which is also an aspect of the creators. And also, Ra said that in some passage that the value or the insight of the negative polarity wasn't very well acknowledged until they discovered the card of the fool, which we
right,
will talk about at the end. So,
right. Yeah, there was a passage that I wanted to include in this session, but I had to make some cuts at some point, and that was one that I cut where they said, they were talking about the devil part, and they were saying, is the matrix of the spirit evil? No, no, it's not evil or it's not good. It just is. It's just neutral, and it is kind of how we perceive it as being good or evil. And they were saying that, Quo, I think, was saying we don't have the sentimental hatred for evil that your peoples do. It's like we just see it as another aspect of self to be loved and embraced and integrated. And it's like interesting. Yeah. Certainly these days, I mean, I think that is the challenge for all of us to do our own versions of shadow work and to love those who we see as our opposite polarity. Anybody have anything else to add on this passage before we look at another one?
Yeah, I just thought that the example that you gave, Jonathan, about people in positions of power who speak either the truth or not the truth is a very good analogy. I can also see that in this whole debacle of the UFO disclosure. We don't know what is true and what is not true, and we are kind of groping in the dark or in the moonlight and trying to collect those pieces of information that resonate most with us to kind of find a certain truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, it seems obvious that our political system is pretty much controlled by service to self entities for their own agenda. So, yeah, whenever the subject of disclosure comes up, I just assume they're not going to release any information other than what they want us to know. And it's like, yeah, I don't have any interest in that. But again, that's just me. Everybody makes their own discernments. Anybody else? Any thoughts on this passage? Let's take a look at another one. This was from also session 80, question 10. The questioner asks, now the 15th archetype, which is the matrix of the spirit, has been called the devil. Can you tell me why that is so? Ra, I am Ra. We do not wish to be facile in such a central query, but we may note that the nature of the spirit is so infinitely subtle that the fructifying influence of light upon the great darkness of the spirit is very often not as apparent as the darkness itself. The progress chosen by many adepts becomes a confused path as each adept attempts to use the catalyst of the spirit. Few there are which are successful in grasping the light of the sun. By far the majority of adepts remain groping in the moonlight, and as we have said, this light can deceive as well as uncover hidden mystery. Therefore, the melody, shall we say, of this matrix often seems to be of a negative and evil, as you would call it, nature. It is also to be noted that an adept is one which has freed itself more and more from the constraints of the thoughts, opinions, and bonds of other selves. Whether this is done for service to others or service to self, it is a necessary part of the awakening of the adept. This freedom is seen by those not free as what you would call evil or black. The magic is recognized, the nature is often not. So much to unpack in this passage, so many interesting things. And that groping in the moonlight part is a phrase that I just always remember, and I try to throw it into Law of One conversations as often as I can because it's such a great image of what I believe, yeah, third density is all about. Not knowing, not understanding, just trying to make the best discernments he can in moonlight. What do you think, Neely? Any thoughts on this passage?
Yeah, I also like the groping in the moonlight because I feel that this is what I'm doing most of the time. I really, walk around blindfolded in this life, and that's the best I can do, really. There is no specific method or way to go about life, I feel. Like it's more about really the subtle processes that go within you, where you kind of find yourself resonating or walking more and more the path that resonates with you. And I want to talk a little bit about um, the person which has freed itself more and more from the constraints of other selves. I find a lot of the time that this is the path that I'm taking, and a lot of the times I'm an in the closet, spiritual seeker, just because it seems like society and the norms of society, they really want you to be part of the herd. They really want you to be part of the pack. And things are being done subtly and not so subtly to either ridicule or ostracize people who sort of threaten the status quo. Yesterday I was sitting in a group meeting of some people in Portland who one of the people was talking about, we were talking about telepathy. And one of the people has grandchildren, and their parents do not allow him to talk to their grandchildren about telepathy and stuff like that. They're just in, and he said, well, this is their own free will, and I respect that. They're the parents, and of course, I won't break that. But it's really interesting that people fear those things as if they are some kind of threat to themselves. So they look at it as evil. Um, it also makes me think a little bit about the witch hunts that happened centuries ago, and it's about strong independent women who knew maybe a little bit more or a different way, and they were just hunted and killed. So yeah.
Yeah, and still treated somewhat similarly today. People who are of the Wiccan faith don't see being called a witch as a negative thing. That's like has very positive earth-based spirituality meanings to them, but to the general population, yeah, they see that as something evil.
Yeah.
Really ties in with that last line, I think, where they say the magic is recognized, the nature is not. The freedom is seen by those who are not free as what you would call evil or black or dark to this day. What do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts on this passage?
You know when you have a problem and you try a lot of good solutions and none of them works? Sometimes you need a bad solution in the sense that you need like
That would explain a lot of what I'm seeing around me today.
you
Yeah.
need a bad idea. Yeah, you need a bad idea. Sometimes the only way up is down. And I think there is a quote somewhere in the Love One that said that Lucifer acted as true light bringer when he sort of brought around like the concept of free will. Because before, everyone lived in harmony and there was like collective consciousness and everyone was connected to the source. And there was no evolution because everyone was just so peaceful, we're so united, so everything. And so we needed a bad idea. And that was a bad idea, which turned out to be a good idea, but it turned out to be a very dangerous idea. It's the light that was brought that is used a lot more often to deceive than to enlighten in our days, but it's sometimes the only way up is down. And we went down, and now we're trying to come back up. I think it's good.
Yeah, I can definitely see truth to that. And it is interesting that the matrix of the spirit would be referred to as the devil if you look at the bottom of the image on your screen, as well as the rest of the archetypes we look at. And yeah, another name for devil is Lucifer, which I believe does mean light bringer. So somebody who brings light into the darkness of the matrix of the spirit. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. What do you think, Andy? Anything to add?
Yeah, I found one of the most difficult cards when I was meditating on them. So my third cycle of working with them was to just like ignore everything I'd read and just contemplate them every day until I felt ready to move on. And most of the other cards I was done in like 2, 3 weeks, but this one took months. And then suddenly one night, I had this dream where I descended into like the depths of hell, and I was on this bridge battling this frightening red-eyed demon that was like 100 times my size. And I had my shield and my sword, and I was fighting and on this bridge. And then it roared at me and it said, "You will never defeat me, for I have dwelt here for an eternity, and my eyes are accustomed to this darkness, but you coming from the light are not." And in that moment in my dream, I thought, actually, yeah, you're right. And then I abandoned my shield and my sword, and I gave this demon a cuddle. And in that moment, we kind of merged into one. And and he became me, I became him, and he could see who I was, and he realized that actually if I could just like let go then and not fight, everything would be so much easier. And I, in seeing him, saw that, oh my God, if I just gave up control and gave up my fear, then like everything would be easier. And poor you, demon, like you've been so frightened. And at that point, I realized like this scary demonic devil entities that we're also frightened of are actually just tiny little cute little puppies that are dressed up as demons, and there's nothing to be scared of, because the God that and the creator within each of us is more powerful than any evil demonic thing that you can imagine, and there's nothing to be scared of.
And that is a beautiful segue into the next passage we've got for sure. I don't really have anything to add to that. Does anybody have anything else on this passage? It's nice. Let's take a look at one more, and this is one that Andy and Neely shared with me that I really, really love. Never seen this before. This was actually from our friend Latui on May 23rd, 1982, which apparently they were still doing conscious channelings during the raw contact. I, for some reason, wasn't really aware of that, but this was happening during the raw contact. But this is Latui in a conscious channeling session said, oh, I'm sorry. There's two passages here. Sorry, the first one is also Latui, but it's from December 7th, 1980, which may or may not have been during the raw contact. Latui here says, the one known as Satan is merely the shadow of evil thoughts. Given fear enough, evil thoughts can do harm, can cause fear and pain and anguish. This power is given to the satanic principle only through the fear of the one who is feeling the difficulty. There is no reality to the fear, and thus it is said, love casteth out fear. The one principle called Satan is a lonely and sad thought form, and we would say to you, accept this principle as part of yourself, as that within you, if you will, which spurs you on to growth, to new understandings, and to desire for truth. Love this entity, therefore, and take all strength from this mere shadow. So beautiful. I really, really love the wording and the meaning in there. The second passage is from May 23rd, 1982, and Latouille says, "We may comment further by suggesting that the entity known as Jesus, when speaking of that concept of negativity called Satan in your holy works, was speaking of those temptations that were being offered to it by those forces which wished to depolarize the one known as Jesus so that its work would remain undone. The one known as Jesus, though, accepted it fully, those forces of negativity or darkness within its heart of being, loved them, forgave them, and had compassion for them. Yet did it say to those forces that it wished to pursue another path, and that those temptations which were being offered were not acceptable to this entity, though the entities offering them were indeed accepted, loved, and cherished. Therefore, the entity known as Jesus was, in refusing these temptations, not opposing those forces of darkness, but was loving them in the fullest, while at the same time refusing their offerings." Yeah, I really love those references in the first part to Satan being merely the shadow of evil thoughts, and it gets its power just by those who fear it. It gets its power through the fear. So loving this entity takes away the strength from this mere shadow. I just think that's such a beautiful way of expressing that. What do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts on anything here?
If I remember correctly, those temptations appeared primarily when Jesus was walking through the desert, or at least that's what the story says.
When he was fasting in the desert, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, for like 40 days or something. Big fast.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have given something for a burger.
Is that what you were thinking at your 3-day retreat recently? I think I want a burger. Yeah.
I think it's part of the initiation, right? And these things they come and you think they appear for the first time, but uh, really what they're doing is they're allowing something that was already within you, like at the bottom of your own sea, they're allowing it to surface up. And by not reacting, nor positively or like indulging in it or negatively, like hating it and criticizing it, you really allow your energy to flow and become new again. And that's part of the initiation rite of Jesus Christ. And I think that anyone that really wants to follow the path of the Christ consciousness or illumination. So it's a part of the process, is an essential tool, and if used properly, it has its purpose, its place, and its meaning.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think we'll be looking at some passages later on that talk a lot about sacrifice and transformation that kind of goes along with initiation, I believe, that you're referring to. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would say like we don't have to go into the desert for 40 days to be faced with the demons and the devils and these temptations. And I like we're presented with these temptations all the time for in the news and everything. And I recall that the three temptations were one was to turn the stones into bread. So, it was about appetite and, personal needs, I suppose, satisfying them. The second was about kind of, for me, that it represented power, and it was about, well, if you're so spiritual and wonderful, why don't you jump off and see if like God saves you? And that's the temptation of the ego. And I think we're tempted by that, especially as spiritual seekers all the time. There's always the temptation to think, oh, I'm better now and I can go and teach people because I'm more spiritual. And that temptation is there all the time in the early to very late stages. And the minute we think, oh, I know now, and I'm going to go and become a teacher. Like that is
Right.
where the danger is, and
Right. And the
and
third
it's
temptation was power over others, right?
well, the third temptation, I find it's most dangerous. The third temptation was like, all this will be yours. And
Right.
I think there is that temptation where, it's like, okay, if I could get power, if I could get money, I could fix the world's problems and I could,
Right.
and that temptation is the most dangerous because it allows us to wear the cloak of morality and
Right.
goodness. And
Right.
and that's there all like these temptations are there all the time. And we need to, well, for me anyway, I feel like it's a constant process of refinement, of
For sure.
facing these temptations, overcoming them again and again. And that's where the choice comes in as well. We're constantly asked to make this choice. Am
For
I
sure.
going to follow the temptation, or am I going to wait it out and see
Right.
how the creator is going to move through me here?
Yeah,
So,
it reminds me that it has been said more than a few times that control is key to the path of service to self, and acceptance is key to the path of service to others. And those very temptations I think you're referring are something that's really easy for someone on the service to others path to be convinced that they are right and they know what's best, and that if we can just, fix this and change that and make other people more service to others, then the world would be great. And anything about trying to control people or controlling things, that's really actually depolarizing. That's more the service to self path. And yeah, it's an easy thing to forget. The missteps in the dark are oh so easy.
yeah. And can I just add also that the most important part in these passages is when Jesus loved them and forgive them, as in forgiving the parts of the self that are tempted, because it's so easy to beat ourselves up. And actually to be thankful, I'm thankful for the bits of myself that are tempted, that are weak, because it reminds me that I need to be humble, that it's a constant learning process.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, some people and some things are really easy to forgive, and other people and other things, they're really challenged to forgive. But yeah, forgiving the unforgivable and loving the unlovable is apparently the challenge that we've been given on the STO path here. What do you think, Neely? Anything to add?
Firstly, I loved everything you guys had said so far, and I didn't know. I'm not Christian, so I didn't know about the temptations, but these stories are just so beautiful and really manifest the myriad of temptations that we all face every single minute of every single day. I wanted to go back to the first passage actually. There's a part of it that I love so much, and it says, love casteth out fear. And just I was thinking about stories that people in the community told about being having psychic readings, and how instead of fearing them, and it really connects to the story Andy told about her dream, instead of fearing them, they just accepted them with love. I accept you, but thank you, but no thank you. I'm not going to take your gift. So that really eases the fear in the mind. And I find that going back to that again and again and again will bring me back to center, to just like, I love you, thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah, so important, so easy to overlook. I'm reminded of a passage where Quo said something to the effect, they were talking about space-time and time-space and how different they are. They were saying, and I'm paraphrasing, things or people that seem like a real big deal in space-time are often like insignificant in time-space, and vice versa. Things that seem really insignificant in space-time are often like very consequential in time-space. And it reminds me of that. I think of that when I look at that passage where they refer to Satan as merely the shadow of evil thoughts, and that Satan principle is really Satan is a lonely and sad thought, kind of like what Andy was referring to before. I like to think of those people that we seem as really big, powerful, negative entities in our third density illusion in time space. They're just like annoying little fucking bugs or something. They're really of very little consequence in time space, and people who seem to be insignificant in space time. Whatever they do with love and being able to love the unlovable and forgive the unforgivable, they really are a big deal in time space. At least that's what I'm telling myself. That's what I'm taking on faith while I'm here. Anybody else have any thoughts on these couple passages before we change subject?
Probably on psychic reading. Yeah, sometimes I used to get scared about that. Like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? Am I gonna have like a brain tumor? Because I guess I don't know. Like, um, from what I understand, and maybe you guys can confirm, it's limited to pre-incarnative choices and past karma or something like that. They can only even like very advanced like time-space entities, that are doing a psychic reading on you that is not so kind. They can just work with what's already there, what you already gotta work through. So the way I see it, if you are experiencing that, then it's a challenge. It's an opportunity for you to grow or to collapse. So a psychic reading can be a bad thing, but you can make good use of it and transform it into a very warp speed transformation.
For sure. Yeah, I believe Carla and Quo both said at least a couple of times that most of what people call psychic readings is not coming from an external source. It's just part of your own shadow self, parts of yourself that you have not fully integrated yet. So I think in either case, they say the solution is kind of what they say here. Love this entity, take all strength from the mere shadow. Take whatever seems to be the source of the psychic greeting, and rather than responding with fear or anger or fighting, to love it and embrace it. And that takes its power away. That's a beautiful thought. Again, easy to say, not so easy to do in the moment, but I believe that is the teaching that's being shared. Anybody else? Any thoughts on that or anything else? Psychic greetings would be like a whole nother podcast episode for sure. Let's go ahead and take a look at a couple passages on Potentiator of the Spirit. In session 78 of the Raw Contact, in question 11, Ra said, "The matrix of the spirit is what you may call the night of the soul or primeval darkness. Again, we have that which is not capable of movement or work. The potential power of this extremely receptive matrix is such that the potentiator may be seen as lightning. In your archetypical system called the Tarot, this has been refined into the concept complex of the lightning-struck tower. However, the original potentiator was light in its sudden and fiery form, that is, the lightning itself." And in session 79, question 20, Ra says, "The matrix of the spirit is difficult to characterize since the nature of spirit is less motile. The energies and movements of the spirit are, by far, the most profound, yet having more close association with time-space, do not have the characteristics of dynamic motion. Thusly, one may see the matrix as the deepest darkness and the potentiator of the spirit as the most sudden awakening, illuminating, and generative influence." Super fascinating. If the matrix of the spirit is indeed darkness, night, the potentiator experiences like that flash of lightning in the darkness. That's a really cool concept. I would love to hear panelists' thoughts on it. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on anything here?
I have, but I would really like Neely to go first if that's okay, because I feel like she has such an important story to share
Oh,
about
nice.
this archetype.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
We'll come back to you. Go for it, Neil.
thank you. Yeah, thanks. So my story is really interesting in the way that an archetype manifested itself in the world around me. So about a year and a half ago, I had a very, very strong lightning struck tower moment where my subconscious or unconscious brought up some stuff from my childhood, some trauma, some very, very severe trauma from my childhood to my conscious mind. And all of a sudden, I was faced with holy shit, like nothing is what I thought it was. And it was a really difficult opening. And I was walking in shock that day. And that night, I was driving through a very open space, and all of a sudden, there was a huge thunder and lightning storm. So I had maybe 10 or 12 lightnings seen across the terrain. And that was like, oh, it resonates so much with what I'm going through right now. And it was really interesting.
Did you
I
make the connection at that time to
I
the
made the
potentiator
connection
of the spirit?
immediately and I
Okay.
sent an email to Andy and I asked her, Andy, what can you tell me about the lightning struck tower? Because I need to know. I feel that something big happened. So that was super interesting. And that was kind of like at the beginning of when we first started doing the archetypical mind study group. So everything kind of resonated around the same thing.
Wow.
And I want to say that that potentiator, that lightning struck tower, is but a momentary moment of illumination. So it was compared to an awakening, right? You awaken from that thing that was lying in the darkness, all of a sudden it's there, but it's also very momentary. So you saw a truth, but it's not like you can sit now, oh, I'm an awakened being, right?
Right.
So you saw it, it disappeared. Now you need to work with it and wait until your next moment of illumination.
Right. Wow, what a powerful story. Rarely do we get to see things manifested quite so clearly to us in physical form. That's really, really something. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Neely or Andy, anything to add?
Yeah, I find to add to Neely's story, I found that when working with the archetypes, and if we're willing to let go of the intellectual mind and just um embody them or allow them to speak to us wordlessly without trying to overthink it, then things happen in life that will show us, what they mean. And and the meaning is beyond just like understanding. It really helps in terms of like deconstructing the self and knowing the self, which is what Ra often calls us to do, know yourself, become the creator, accept the self, not in that order. And it's so useful in my journey personally to constantly deconstruct because there's like new me's being constructed all the time. But I feel I need to really deconstruct and let go of the stories that I've held about myself in order to let new stories unfold and
Right.
let the creator flow through my life.
Right.
And that's where the joy is.
Yeah.
And also like there's so many stories we tell ourselves about ourselves that we're not even aware of,
Right.
all these beliefs. And hence that's why I like asking people questions because it often makes me realize things about myself, like assumptions that I've held that aren't actually true. And everything that we believe about ourselves, anything that comes after I am, like I am clever, I am sad, I am a victim, I am a hero, everything that comes after the I am is actually a cage that we put around ourselves that comes with expectations and a set of behaviors. And if we can constantly let that tower be deconstructed, then there's
Yeah.
so much more to be experienced,
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And I believe it has been said many different times in many channeling sessions that so much of the spiritual journey is about letting go, letting fall away those parts of ourselves that are not true, authentic selves or not part of the original thought or the one infinite creator within. It's like chiseling away at the stone to find the statue that's beneath it. That's a big spiritual teaching, I think. What do you think, Guillermo? Anything to add?
Well, since we're sharing stories, I was on my first Vipassana trip this summer, and after 7 days of intense meditation, I had also a potentiator lightning moment. It was a literally lightning bolt that well, not literally, but that was the experience that just struck me and passed through my whole spine column, and I just was electrified, and there was like I became the lightning. It went all the way up to the heaven, and I never experienced it since. And like you said, Neely, it's a moment. It's a momentary moment that, but it puts thing in motion because I was coming to a halt on my evolution step. I was confused. I had a lots of cravings, and I got that experience. And guess what? I'm still human. I still fuck up. I still choose to go the wrong path every now and then. But now I know it, and it bothers me because I know it.
You were happy when you didn't know you were making a mistake.
Yeah, at least I thought I was getting somewhere. Now I know actually I'm going nowhere. And I want to make myself believe that it's going somewhere, but really it isn't. It's really bothering. Like it's a very bothering, very bothering lightning bolt. But it set things in motion. Like the setup of the matrix of the spirit was already there, but it was like all like in a unpotentiated form, like in the ethereal realm, and then bam, it's in motion, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, great story. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, I think that is a good, useful reminder that, yeah, the lightning struck, they're fleeting. And we all get, I think, at some point, moments of enlightenment, moments of illumination, moments of feeling oneness or universal love. And then, yeah, 5 minutes later, something pisses us off and we kind of forget about all that. And
Do
so
you
much
have
of
a
it seems
moment
to be
of
trying to remember and come back to that experience.
Do you have a moment that stands out for you, Jonathan, that you can share with us?
No, I think I've had a lot of those moments over the years. I think they used to be very few and far between. And I think I got to say, with the Law of One, I get those moments more often and I remember them more, and it's easier for me to come back to it. So sometimes it's meditation, sometimes it's talking with people, sometimes it's listening to music, sometimes I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just watching something on TV that brings back a memory, but. Yeah. It's oftentimes emotional for me. Oftentimes when I feel my heart opening, that's kind of a big part of what the feeling is, the open heart and feeling it. And that often brings a release of tears. So you see me do that on Zoom sessions, on our regular Tuesday, Saturday sessions enough times. So yeah, that was good examples. Yeah. To our viewers, did want to encourage you to join us for one of our regular Tuesday, Saturday Seattle Law of One Zoom sessions. We don't record those sessions. We want people to be able to express themselves freely without worrying about it being uploaded to the internet or anything. So, yeah, over time, we've had a lot of people who also hang out with other Law of One study groups. Most people kind of go back and forth and cross-pollinate, but when you're with a group of people where you're able to build up enough trust that you can share from the heart and be vulnerable, it's a beautiful thing. Appreciate your asking. Hope that answers your question. Did anybody else have anything else they wanted to share about this passage before? I think we had a second one on this. Let's take a look at another one. This is from September 16th, 2001. This was only a couple weeks after the 9/11 attacks in New York City, and this passage has been edited for brevity. Here, Quo said, "Let us go back to that lightning-struck tower and look at its significance again. Within your next decade or two, this transformation will have taken place. This is the time to acknowledge fully the need to learn the ways of the self, to become more and more familiar with the thoughts of the heart, with an eye to working with these thoughts, to accentuating the tendency towards positivity, towards compassion, towards tolerance, towards creativity, towards hope and faith. The lightning-struck tower is a kind of signal at this time that great catalyst is now available for the spirit. And the Tarot system, which this instrument is somewhat familiar with, the catalyst of the spirit is hope. And that is what we're going to be talking about next. But for now, Yeah, I really love this passage, that part in red about becoming more and more familiar with the thoughts of the heart, with an eye to working with these thoughts towards accentuating the tendency towards positivity. That certainly seems appropriate in a world that seems to be like where we are increasingly being barraged by increasingly negative catalyst. Yeah, I think that's a really powerful reminder for us in this time of transition. What do you think, Neely? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, the lightning struck tower, if you look at the card, it also talks about breaking apart the shell or breaking apart whatever you thought you were. And it gives us an opportunity to really look inside and observe those thoughts that we have and be very honest about, thinking about our fears, what scares us, thinking about our judgments. Because as you said, Earth is a very volatile place right now, and things happen and you automatically judge them. But having those moments of clarity, of illumination, to stop for a second and realize that the work is mostly inside. We have so little influence on events that are happening in the outside world. And the biggest work that we are here to do, in my opinion, this is how I feel, of course, doesn't make it true, is to look inside and examine those thoughts and accept them, even the negative ones, and build your compassion, build your love. Because I feel like in a world where everything is shifting and moving with such strength and ferocity, keeping our center will only be available to us if we do focus on that love and compassion and clarity.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I'm reminded that lightning is power. So that part about the signal of great catalyst available is so much power in learning to work with energies of compassion and tolerance and creativity and hope and faith. Super beautiful, inspiring at this time for sure. Guillermo, anything to add? Any thoughts?
I think it's a challenge. You're being presented with a challenge. I mean, it seems at first pretty natural, to not necessarily natural, but it seems simple. Maybe it is. In its simplicity, it's a simple challenge, which is really difficult to achieve. But positivity, in my experience, in my opinion, true positivity is equanimity, and remaining equanimous is really challenging. It's uh, it's easy
What
to
does
get.
that word mean to you? What does equanimity mean to you?
Oh, it means being detached from the outcome, or being detached from the way you want to see it, because I think it's easy to get distracted of I'm a positive person. I want a positive outcome. And when it's not positive, then you're sad. And you're like, oh, it's not positive. And you want to make it positive. And you try, you're like, why are you not positive? Why is he not getting positive? Why is he not this? Why is he not that? But I think true positivity, it's accepting things like as they are, and that's a very big challenge. Even
Yeah.
from moment to moment, you can just see it right now. Like you can grasp any sensation in your body. Do you really accept it as they are? And if you stay long enough, you realize that no, you don't. And then you
Right.
try, and then you try, and then you try, and it's a big challenge.
Beautiful thoughts. I had not thought of it that way. So I really appreciate your sharing that. That definitely, I think, is a really valuable way to look at it. I don't use the word equanimity that much. I'll have to look up the definition. What you said makes perfect sense to me. I think in my mind, I was picturing equanimity as like equilibrium, like a balance that's even and balanced. So, like you said, no matter what happens, that seems to be of a positive or negative nature, being able to accept it as it is and not being thrown off center, not being thrown off balance. I think, yeah, it's definitely something I'm working towards. Got a ways to go for sure. What do you think, Andy? Anything to add?
Oh, so much. I mean, on the one hand, this passage makes me want to cry because it's so beautiful. And then on the other hand, it's like, what the fuck, man, Quo? It's been 2 decades. Where is this fucking transformation? Like this was in 2001. It's now 2026. Show me the money.
Well, they said, what, in the next decade or two, this transformation will have taken place. So, for sure, seen some pretty powerful transformations since 2001. But yeah, I have a feeling it's not over yet. We still got a ways to go. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, jokes aside, all these catalysts, everything that winds us up and stirs things in us, they're such wonderful gifts and opportunities for us to look at the self and go and not just, oh, what aspect of this am I denying, but like just really looking at the bits of the self that are reacting and sending that love and just to keep going inward. Okay, who's upset by this? Why are you upset? What can I do for you? Let me listen to you. Let me give you space. Let me give you airtime and just like constantly bombard the self with love and acceptance and love and acceptance. And in that personal transformation, that faith that everything will work out will bring healing. I can't explain how, but I just know. And I think that's what equanimity is as well. It's a lot of it is strengthened by our faith.
Agreed. And that apparently is really important part of this whole experience because that's what the choice seems to be about faith, which, as we shall find out, is very central to our third density experience. Really loving the conversation so far. Does anybody else have anything to add on this slide before we look at the next archetype? Well, let's take a look at the next archetype, and we're going to pick up where we left off on this particular passage. This is, again, from September 16th, 2001, where, again, Quo says, the lightning-struck tower is a kind of signal at this time that great catalyst is now available for the spirit. In the Tarot system, which this instrument is somewhat familiar with, the catalyst of the spirit is hope. You could also call this entity faith. We think you will find that honing the faculties of faith, hope, and love will be an agenda that will keep you profitably busy for the rest of your incarnation, doing what you came to do, serving as you came to serve. And then on February 25th, 2023, not too long ago, Quo said, for as you quoted, as one stands closer to the light, one acts as a greater beacon of that light, embodying that light, exuding that light. Those catalysts and challenges and that devotion to that path further prime the entity to become a clear channel of that light and love. The releasing and breaking down the parts of the self which perhaps blind or confuse the self about its truth, forgiving, allowing the release of the self-motivation, the service to self movements, or the more gentle aspects of self, the moments of selfishness, all of those being released through these challenges, through these catalysts that come with one's journey closer to that light. Reminds me of what we said not too long ago about letting things fall away that are not part of your better self that you're trying to be. That's what I'm seeing here described as the process with a catalyst. What do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts on either of these two passages?
Well, in there was this guy named Drunvalo Melchizedek, and he predicted that in the year 2012 there was going to be this big transformation. Then it became 2020, 2022, then something else. And I'm getting the feeling it's a pattern, you know. People make big promises, and you have these expectations that will be transformed into a new dimension. And maybe it's the case, but I wonder, having hope for specific scenarios like that, is it not selfish in a way? You know, we want it to be a certain way, we want the world to be in a certain way, we want peace. And what if the collective unconscious needs war right now, you know? Not because war is a good thing, but because there's some things that need to come out and that's what's required. I don't know. I'm not fully connected with the collective consciousness of humanity and the infinite creator. Lately, I'm releasing more and more my expectations of big transformations to come. I'm like, whatever. I mean, whatever. I'll be here. I'll do my best. Yeah, leave me alone. Thanks.
Well, I think that is an important reminder that regardless of what happens, the mission for us is still the same. The mission remains keep your heart open as much as possible, do as much as you can to lighten earth energies, regardless of what the state of the world happens to be in. So, I know maybe time is just different for beings in fifth, sixth density who see things in terms of millions of years. So, 2012 to 2026 is not really that big a time span in their point of view. And certainly in my view, I can say, yes, the world has changed a lot since 2012. I know it seems like a very different world than it was then. So, for whatever that's worth. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on anything here?
Um, yeah, I mean, faith and hope. There's a lot of people who ask what the difference is between faith and hope, and I think they're like muscles. It's like a muscle that you exercise that gets stronger and stronger, like going to the gym. And for me, hope is the first step, but hope has the idea of an outcome attached to it. Like, I hope this will happen. And faith abandons that outcome, and it's just, like, whatever happens, it'd be okay. And then beyond faith, there's just that knowing, and that unprovable knowing, and it requires exercise. And I think maybe, like, all these things that we're presented with in this illusion is just something for us to hone in that muscle of faith, and what that will help us to purify this vessel and bring it home. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so much that is baffling and mystifying about so much of this stuff that we're all, like we said, just groping in the moonlight, just sharing the best of our opinions on this. And you who are watching this on video have probably picked up on things that we've missed here, and wish you could be part of the conversation here to share that also, because I always learn from different folks. What do you think, Neely? Anything to add?
Yeah, I really like the differentiation that both Guillermo and Andy made between hope and faith. And I find from my own personal journey that at the beginning, when I first discovered channeling, I was really drawn to those channelings that predicted the ascension of everybody and what's going to happen in the next 5 years, 10 years. And that was I think it's an important part of the journey to, before you have faith, you want to be introduced with hope. Because otherwise, what are you doing? But then the more the journey focuses inward, the less you are dependent. And right now, I find those channelings less interesting than the ones that talk about internal strength and courage and seeking internally. So at some point, without even noticing it for myself, my, holding on to hope turned into faith somehow. And the faith is knowing that all is well, no matter, what storm is brewing outside, all is really well. And focusing on that on the mission, I think.
Yeah, which the images in this archetype seem to speak well to. You've got a woman who I kind of represent as nurturing female energies, doing what appears to be watering the earth on both sides. And on one side, which appears to be the right-hand path, you got a flower blooming, and you've got a upside down butterfly being, I think, one of the best representations of transformation I can think of. So clearly there does seems to be something hopeful and faithful about practicing the catalyst of the Spirit. As far as I can tell, anybody have anything to add before we look at experience of the Spirit? Let's look at that. Experience of the Spirit. On June 14th, 1992, Quo said, "The moon's dimmest light is the brightest illumination as one seeks spiritually. It is extremely subtle and difficult work to distinguish truth from inaudible or outright falsity, to distinguish the positive leaning towards the love of the Infinite One in service to others from the same activity which may seek service to self. Many are those metaphysical seekers who expect that the seeking towards the positive truth will be done in noonday sun, metaphysically speaking. This is untrue. The metaphysical search is not clear, obvious, or simple. Each of you here who listens to this voice speaking our thoughts knows of the case of mistaking apparent truth for truth, and can recall instances in which that which one thought one had discovered to be a shining light was instead relatively valueless and not filled with light or power. In the dim moonlight, shadows can be deceiving. The metaphysical search, then, is one in which faith is the great illuminator, that faith which cannot be given by one to another, that faith which each gestates within the spiritual part of the mind and body, so that there becomes a faith which is personal, founded by the self." Yeah, beautiful passage where this archetype, also referred to as the moon, harkens back to I believe it was the matrix of the Spirit, about groping in the moonlight and the difficulty of making discernments and light and shadow, really echoed here. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts? Anything here?
Yeah, it's just I love this card. It's so fun. To me, it's like playing hide and seek, and not knowing, and for me, when I gave up needing to know, needing to find an objective truth, the whole world, the whole journey became so much more fun, and it's like an enormous game of hide and seek, and just being comfortable with the illusion and treating it as a gift, this journey that apparently before we came, we all wanted to be part of. And just really not to be scared of aspects of ourselves that we find frightening or that we don't want to face, and to see that actually underneath the scariest bits lie, the most precious jewels. Like someone told me when I had my first child, like children need the most love when they're the least lovable. And I think that applies to adults. It applies to everyone, the parts of us that are least lovable are the parts that need the most love. And if we don't hide from them, and know that it's an illusion, then it just makes the journey so much more joyful.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that is, again, a really good reminder that those entities who we see as really big, powerful, and fearful, doing terrible things are probably deep inside very sad and lonely people who really need love probably more than most. And it's challenging, but at least if you can see them that way, then maybe that helps make it a little bit easier to give them that love.
I do see them that way, actually, but it still irritates me. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, you're just a pathetic little mummy's boy, just go suck on her titties now and leave us alone.
Yeah. I'll have to use that line next time. Yeah, for sure. Go suck on some titties. That's great spiritual advice, for sure. What do you think, Neely? Anything to add?
Yeah, I really liked what you said, Andy. I feel like the whole journey inside the spirit archetypes is about letting go at the end of the day. Specifically for the positive path seeker, as opposed to trying to control all those negative, tendencies, emotions, thoughts. Just accept them, let go of who you thought you were a minute before, and continue on along the way. Kuo is talking a lot about the difficulty to distinguish truth from falsity. And you can see it in the outside world, where you currently see some prominent spiritual teachers mentioned in the Epstein files and stuff like that, things that you really thought was a shining light. I know that there are a lot of students of said people that right now they just do not know where to go from here. And I feel that it's because there was a reliance on something external, on a persona, rather than seeking inside. So again, this whole thing about distinguishing truth from falsity again is kind of directing us inwards rather than outwards, because it's very confusing outside right now. And I feel that with the faculty of faith, you can sit inside and discern the truth for yourself. And that truth, my truth, might not be your truth, Jonathan, and it might be not be your
Right.
truth, Andy, but it's still valid for me.
Right. Yeah, and I did want to add, in spite of all the talk that we've said about loving the unlovable and forgiving the unforgivable, that I'm not suggesting spiritual bypassing. I am suggesting there are still a lot of steps you need to go through before you get to the point where you can love somebody or forgive them. And part of that means being honest with them and holding them accountable for what they've done, setting boundaries. Nobody, I mean, you can still love somebody who's been abusive to you, but that doesn't mean you have to allow them to continue being abusive to you. That's part of what I think we would call the balance between love and wisdom, which I think is an important part of this for sure. What do you think, Guillermo? Anything to add? Any thoughts?
Have you ever tried to walk in darkness, like outside in the forest in the dark, where you can't very much see?
On occasion, yeah.
I've noticed, and actually, there's some science behind it. Afterwards, I found out that you have like the cones that are like the focus center where the largest part of your cortex processes that information. So that's really like your focus points. But they really work well for light conditions. Like in the dark, pitch dark conditions, it's actually the rods on around, on your peripheral view that works best. So if you try to focus on where you are actually going, that's the worst idea you can get in the dark. Because your focus point is actually the one that can see the less in darkness. Instead, the peripheral view, the surrounding, the thing that doesn't work very well in daylight is actually the right way to go. And if you do take some mushrooms and you try to look through your peripheral view, you feel like a feline, like you have a big expanding eyes and you see like everywhere. And that got me thinking, what's really like, what's really the moon, the darkness, walking in the night. And I think it's not only realizing what it is, but also actually embracing it, we use it every time we tell lies to ourselves that motivates us to do things, to accomplish things. But they're lies, they're temporal lies, they're like stepping stones. For example, I was convinced I needed to be an Olympian swimmer when I was young, and I trained like a slave, and I became very good at it. In retrospect, if I wouldn't have been convinced that I absolutely needed to do this or absolutely lately like needed to learn mathematics, I need it because it's the best thing you can do in this planet. And I no longer believe that, but I needed to be in that mindset to do something. And that's sort of what we're doing. We have a veil. We feel like we need to evolve. We feel like we need to discover. And that's exactly what our predecessors lacked before the veil. But guess what? It's a veil. It's a lie. We don't really need to do anything. But we're convinced we do, and we have hope, and the whole thing is set in motion. So it's a
Oh, there's something to be said for like giving it everything you got, whatever it is that you feel like something you want to do it with passion and with caring and with everything you got. Even if you discover sometime later that don't really need to continue doing that. At the time, I would like to think that's valuable. Could apply to anything, I suppose. Anybody have any other thoughts on this? I think I had a second passage on experience of the spirit. Anybody have
I just
anything
want
to
to
add?
share my analogy for this third density experience. Like, do you guys know the game Marco Polo and that you play in the pool where
Mm-hmm.
like one person's got his eyes closed or is blindfolded and they go Marco and then everyone else goes Polo and they've got to search, right, for
Okay.
whoever. And this third density is like playing Marco Polo, except everybody is blindfolded. And instead of water, we're swimming in the pool of shit, and nobody knows how to swim. Like,
Right. That sounds pretty much like third density to me. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of monkeys on the side of the pool throwing shit at everybody. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I mean, it comes down to the veil of forgetting that Guillermo was referring to. The whole point of third density is to do a closed book test to see if even by being blinded to everything that you used to know, if you can still make choices to help you polarize in service to others when the world seems overwhelmingly biased towards service to self. That's the challenge for sure. Anybody else? Anything to add before we look at a second passage? Let's see. This one is from Raw Contact Session 80, question 15. Raw says, the adept, whether positive or negative, has the same matrix. The potentiator is also identical. Due to the catalyst of each adept, the adept may begin to pick and choose that into which it shall look further. The experience of the spirit, that which you have called the moon, is then by far the more manifest of influences upon the polarity of the adept. Even the most unhappy of experiences, shall we say, which seem to occur in the catalyst of the adept, seen from the viewpoint of the spirit, may, with the discrimination possible in shadow, be worked with until light equaling the light of the brightest noon descends upon the adept and positive or service to others illumination has occurred. The service to self adept will satisfy itself with the shadows, and grasping the light of day, will toss back the head in grim laughter, preferring the darkness. Excuse me. Yeah, really fascinating passage, and I really love the imagery here, and I love the idea that even the most negative seeming experiences or catalysts can be worked with by the positive adept until light equaling the brightest noon descends upon the adept and illumination has occurred. That's really a challenge that I think so many people have experienced, so many seemingly negative experiences, to be able to make something positive out of that that helps you polarize further towards the positive. That also seems to be wired into the archetypical mind. Any thoughts on anything here, Neely?
Well, if I will go back to my personal story about that lightning struck tower, my revelation or my awakening was towards really, bad experiences that I experienced as a child. And if you look at it, it can definitely bring somebody into a place of victimhood and into a place of hatred of the abusers, and all of that stuff. But when I look back at the journey that I did in the past year and a half, it actually, I'm thanking the gift, of course, because it allowed me to find depth of compassion and depth of forgiveness that I don't think I would have discovered if it wasn't for that. And there are many events in my life that were very difficult at the moment, but when I look at each and every one of them in meditation, the only thing I see is how they provided the opportunity for me to find more love in the moment and to express more of that love outside to the world. So this is it. You can look at it both ways. You can think you're a victim, and you can swear and bitch and moan at your whatever terrible thing happened to you, or you can do the hard work and look inside and see what does it invoke in you. How can I see the love in the moment? How can I forgive? And I think those are precious, precious gifts.
Yeah. Well, and it's beautiful that you're able to look at it at this point after having done a year and a half of the inner work to navigate through that. I'm reminded, oftentimes they use the word athanor or furnace to refer to third density because athanor is like the furnace that is supposedly used in alchemy to change lead into gold. And yeah, experiences like that, I think that definitely sounds like a furnace. And to be able to get to a point where you are now compared to where you were before. Yeah, I think you're coming out of this incarnation as gold, and you went in as lead. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Metaphysically, figuratively speaking. Guillermo, any thoughts on anything here?
I'm wondering what the illumination looked like before the veil, before polarity was introduced.
I don't know. I don't. It must have been really different because they were already illuminated, right, before the veil.
Exactly. So at least it informs us that it has to be something else than realizing, like, really realizing we're all one and no longer having the veil, because they already had that and they were not illuminated, like they were not progressing. So it got me wonder for the first time, like, I wonder what it must look like then, right? Because if that's not illumination, then what is it?
Stagnant, I believe, was the word that was used to describe third density planets before the veil was discovered. Because, yeah, people were living in full illumination. People already knew that all was one. People already knew that every seeming other self was their self. So it was like paradise. And when you live in paradise, you don't really have a whole lot of motivation to go somewhere else. So I believe that's why they said the veil was invented, to give people a reason to want to go beyond where they were.
But I mean, in terms of graduation, like illumination, like graduating from the density, right? Then it has to be something else than realizing we're all one and losing your veil. It has to be something more. So maybe having the veil and having darkness and, having the option to not follow through with that path, then that gives something more. I don't know.
That's a great question. Gotta admit, I have not really thought about it that much, but you got me on that one. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on that or anything else?
Yeah, that is such a good point. It's amazing because it's like, well, illumination and awakening, and knowing might not all mean the same things, and the whole idea of like oneness is again, like we all assume it's the same thing, but they might all be different things. And just because doesn't mean that um you are at one with everything, I guess. I don't know. It's fascinating, something to meditate on. But this this passage reminds me of, I don't know if you guys saw that video a few years back with this father who was teaching his little daughter to laugh at the bombings in Syria. And there was a video of him holding the phone, and every time a bomb went off, or like it's filmed during an air raid, they would laugh. And it's such a moving video because he was teaching her not to be scared. And I see so much of that now at the moment of, you know, people trying to find the positive, and I'm just like flooding my feed with videos of people being kind, being helping each other out, and things that I took for granted, like that, like I'm just crying so much now. And for me, it's a process of healing, like the tears bring healing from the pain that I feel right now. And it's, you know, it's just like, what, why? But, oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have brothers and sisters in the Law of One community who live in those parts of the Middle East where those bombings are happening. And yeah, I don't know how you do it day after day, waking up knowing that there's a better than fair chance that you're not going to make it through the day without being killed or injured or crippled or mutilated or somebody in your family. It's like those are brave, heroic souls who chose to incarnate specifically in one of the darkest parts of this planetary sphere to hold that light, both in space-time and time-space. So blessings to those brothers and sisters. Hopefully you know who you are and you know that we're thinking of you all the time. Anybody else have anything to say on this passage before we look at the next archetype? Let's take a look at a passage on Significator of the Spirit. This is the sun, whereas the previous archetype was the moon. In session 80, question 17, questioner asks, how would you describe the significator of the Spirit? Ra, I am Ra. In answer to the previous query, we set about doing just this. The significator of the Spirit is that living entity which either radiates or absorbs the love and light of the one infinite creator, radiates it to others, or absorbs it for the self. Questioner, then would this process of radiation or absorption, since we have what I call a flux or flux rate, be the measure of the power of the adept? Ra, I am Ra. This may be seen to be a reasonably adequate statement. I love Don the engineer coming here talking about fucking flux capacitors or something. Was he Marty McFly? Is he building a time machine out of a DeLorean? I don't know. I do love the reference, though, to the radiating or absorbing. We have been told many times that the positive path is about radiating light. The negative path is about absorbing light. And it's not like one is better or worse than the other. There's like opposite poles of a battery, so they just are what they are. But I guess you could say the measure of the power of an adept is the degree to which it radiates or absorbs love and light. That's something to contemplate. What do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts on anything here?
Well, to get even to keep on the technical on the technicalities of done. So there's this magnet here. And then the magnet has a flux in the sense that it has a vector field, which is just a function that there's like little arrows and they go up and like this, the North Pole and the South Pole. And the flux is just the total amount of vector of intensity of lines that come out and that get in uh, on the South Pole. And but it's all the same magnet, right? I feel that we're playing this game right now of polarity, and it has a purpose. It creates energy, cool things like magnetism, and like the whole universe can be described in duality. But we are part of the same magnet. It's like the North Pole and the South Pole arguing, like I'm much better than you, and being like, like the Griffin meme. That there's like Meg that says like, you all think you're so much better than me. And then they all super dressed up like this and this with little glasses and stuff.
Is that a metaphor for service to self and service to others?
Yeah, something like
We should all get top hats and monocles. Yeah. That's funny. That's really hilarious. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, there was a passage I read a while ago where they said, as chaotic and crazy and unpleasant as things seem to be on Earth at ground level, if he can kind of dolly the camera back and look at the Earth from a distance and see the interplay between the positive and negative polarities, much like what you're describing, with lines of force and energy and such, it's like to them, it's a beautiful sight. And I suppose if we can look at it from creator's point of view, then we could see that. From a distance, yeah, it is a good thing. And all the seemingly negative catalyst, if that is indeed helping more people graduate on the service to others path, then that's not a bad thing. And if it's helping others graduate on the service to self path from creator's point of view, that's an equally good thing too. So, yeah, challenge is to be able to get some distance on it, I suppose. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's a question. How the sun will, radiate its light and its energy on everything, that's exposed to it indiscriminately. Do you think that's the same for the negatively oriented entities?
I think it's a black hole.
Yeah.
I think if the sun radiates light and a black hole absorbs light, that would be my guess. That would be the equivalent on the negative path.
So in terms of individuals then, like human individuals, so the negative would be, I suppose it'd be like narcissists who constantly need supply and they will get it in by whatever means from whoever. Would that be the case then?
Yeah, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on it, but my first thought would be, yeah, I imagine we can all think of people we've had conversations with and walked away feeling like, man, that person just drained a lot of energy and love out of me, or yeah, they somehow absorbed rather than radiated love and light. I don't know, what do you think, Neely, Guillermo? Any thoughts on what Andy's asking about?
The only thing that I can think about when, Andy, you were talking about the sun shining its light on everything was a lot about revelations that are coming out to the surface right now of some nefarious deeds that were done in darkness. Like the sun at the end of the day will shine on everything and everything will come out.
Yeah, I do believe that. What do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts?
About 10 years ago, I dreamt I was seeing an angel. He was a very beautiful angel. He was floating and he was in flames. And that's the way I would see a very wise negative entity. It has absorbed so much energy, and yet it has refined itself to a very impressive side. I mean, in third density, they're just gonna be assholes, you know. But like from an advanced point, they have accumulated so much. Then it's like the dragon, in the stories. They are the keepers of secrets. They'll tell you something that no one else can tell you, and they'll try to cheat you and to trap you at the same time. But they'll give you something that you cannot find elsewhere. And maybe that's why the creator needs it, because he needs that kind of insight. And the black hole and the sun are the same if you look at time
Right,
continuum, because it's a sun that
right,
hypernovas. So
right. Which I think is super fascinating. Yeah. I know it was said that our logos has a bias towards kindness, which in my mind begs the question of, you mean there's logoi out there that have bias towards cruelty? That must be interesting. And I wonder if they are planetary systems around a black hole, where it's all about absorbing light rather than radiating light. Question I'll have to throw out to Quo at some point. Otherwise, no, I appreciate what Guillermo said. I think asshole would probably be a good way to describe someone who is kind of like you said, Andy, someone who's narcissistic, someone who's in a group and always has to monopolize the airtime, someone who always has to make it about them and talk about themselves and doesn't seem to be the least interested in anyone else. That's, yeah, I would imagine we can all think of people like that. Anybody else have any thoughts on this one before we look at the next archetype? I'm trying to be mindful of time, and I'm trying to keep us from going too far over 2 hours. So let's take this next one. I think is going to take a while. There's a lot to unpack. Let's take a look at transformation of the spirit. In session 80, question 20, Ra said, "That which you call the sarcophagus in your system may be seen to be the material world, if you will. This material world is transformed by the spirit into that which is infinite and eternal. The infinity of the spirit is an even greater realization than the infinity of consciousness, for consciousness which has been disciplined by will and faith is that consciousness which may contact intelligent infinity directly. There are many things which fall away in the many, many steps of adepthood. We of Ra still walk these steps and praise the one infinite creator at each transformation." Yeah, really love this archetype, really love this passage. I mean, there's so many archetypes where I'm looking at the image and it's like, I don't know what the hell's going on in there. I don't know what that's about. This one, it's like kind of hard to see this as anything other than a dead body being risen to life, being resurrected or raised back to life. And I like the idea that the sarcophagus here represents the material world. So transformation about the spirit is transforming that which seems to be the material world into that which is finite and eternal and spiritual world. Super powerful one, lots to unpack. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on this one?
Oh yeah, there's so many layers to this, I think. And also, like for me, it also represents a calling, like us as individuals being called to live or to let the creator live through us, and the
By that
resurrection.
horn blowing angel there? Is that the calling you're
Yeah,
referring to?
yeah. And I remember like last year I visited a crop circle, and then after I had like an initiation experience, and then after that I felt this strong sense of being called, of this calling. And I was telling someone about it from the Law of One community, and it just felt amazing and really strong and powerful that I've been called. And they're like, "So what have you been called to do?" I'm like, "Fuck knows, It's just like the calling, like it wasn't anything grand. In fact, I think it was really simple. I still don't know what the calling is, but it was just like, okay, I will follow wherever it takes me. And also another aspect of this card for me is some cycles of polarity, like where, you got to have death to have resurrection. We've got to have decay in order to have fertility, and it's that constant unfolding, and what we think of maybe as ascension or climbing up a ladder might actually be more like a hamster wheel, where like we go rung after rung after rung, but it actually just keeps cycling. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that calling part. I think I get so fixated on the body being raised from the dead that I don't pay that much attention to the giant angel in the upper right-hand corner, either blowing a horn or smoking a giant bong. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, it really does seem to be a calling, something that is calling that entity back to life from death, which is just, yeah, that's a super cool, powerful image. Oh, what do you think, Neely? Anything to add?
I mean, the one thing that I think about when I think about the resurrection is that this is a process that's happening constantly. Like every second of every day, something about us dies and leaves room for something new to be born. And Andy, I never thought about it as a hamster wheel. I always seem to think about, oh, I'm gonna hit the calling and I'm gonna go, in a Merkaba to the sky, whatever. But this is something that I feel that is constantly happening to us. And if you look at yourselves 10 years ago, you're not gonna recognize that person. That person, mostly has died, and you are now the new incarnation of this person in the material world. And some of the things that we let go of along the way are things that are material. So I find that a lot of people, as they continue on this temporal, plane and go to their later years in life, let go of more and more and more things that are material and birth more and more and more their spiritual selves.
Yeah. Yeah, that last line about the many things that fall away and the many, many steps of add up to calls back to what we said so many times before about those things that fall away in the process of you becoming who you truly are and becoming more the one infinite creator and letting go of those things that are not that. It's beautiful and powerful. What do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts on anything here?
I think this card is really about letting go, like we're saying,
Yeah.
and letting the past die.
Yeah. Yeah. Really powerful teaching for sure. And yeah, it's amazing that anybody alive now could be more or less the same person that they were 10, 20 years ago. It seems like if you have not changed a lot in the last 5, 10 years, you've wasted a really good incarnation, a lot of great catalysts, it seems. Oh, shall we take a look at another passage on this? This is something that I believe we have alluded to already. This is from Hatan, the entity. Oh, no, I'm sorry. First passage is from Quo on March 31st, 1991. Quo says, "This is the example of Jesus' resurrection. This entity expressed in the clearest and most literal way possible the power and the sacrifice of transformation. As each polarizes, these crucifixions, deaths, and resurrections shall continue to occur. The spiritually led life is a life best led by those tough and hardy in spirit, strong warriors who can endure all for the love of the Infinite One." And second passage from the entity known as Hatan, the fourth density part of Quo. And this is from April 18th, 1976. Hatan said, "It was indeed the day of resurrection, yet each and every day is, shall we say, a replay of that resurrection. For each and every day, more and more of your peoples begin their search, in all honesty and with pure dedication, to seek Christ, to seek love, to seek fulfillment, to seek the Creator. Those who choose this shall indeed find that which they seek. Those within this room have arisen. Now it is time that you go forth, as did Christ, and allow those around you to see that you are indeed renewed. You need not speak of your resurrection or renewal if you prefer. Allow it to shine. Allow it to be. Allow yourself to become the instrument of the consciousness to which we refer as Christ. Open your inner being so that you may receive and transmit clearly the love and light of Christ and of our Father, the Creator. You are the channels for the energies which are needed. Attune yourself and observe the resurrection of your planet." Really beautiful passage, and I believe this must have been around Easter time that this was said, given the context of it. And for those who don't consider themselves Christian, I can see how, yeah, so many references to Jesus and Christ in the channeling transcripts. But good reminder that Jesus was about unconditional love, and that is pretty much what fourth density is about, unconditional love. So, as has been said in channeling sessions, Jesus came as a way shower to point the way to fourth density of unconditional love. So, hopefully, one who does not necessarily consider themselves a Christian can still see the beauty in these passages. What do you think, Neely? Any thoughts on this as a non-Christian?
I think I'm gonna pass this one.
Yeah, it sounds good. Andy? I'm sorry, Guillermo?
Well, to come back to what I was saying, it's very metaphorical. It's an analogy. Like anyone can draw something away from it, but it's also enacted in the time-space domain. For example, I always had this, not a recurring dream, but a recurring theme of, yeah, a recurring theme that I would reach very advanced stages of lucid dreaming, and at one point it was the time to transcend the plane or something like that, and I would get there, and then I'll be like, my last attachment was always towards a partner. At the time, and now I was like, oh, I cannot go. Like, what is she gonna think? Like, if we just like poof disappear like right now. Like I have to come back, and then I would awake, and then they're like, okay, not ready yet, not ready yet. And 10 years after, we get to the night before the story I told about the thunderbolt and the illuminate the sense of being like illuminated by the light in the Vipassana retreat. And that same night, the night before, Mars was collapsing onto the planet Earth. Like you could see it there. Like it was like, or a huge meteor. It was like the end of the world. Everything was going to explode. And I was lying like in the sarcophagus position almost, but I was holding my partner's hand, and I turn around and I look at her, and I'm like, see you on the other side. And then I just lay down, and then total transformation, you know? And it's that is this, no, you think like, yeah, I can just give anything, but there's always this little tiny thing that you're not quite, you think you can give it away, but at the moment you have this small hesitation. And that time I did it, and that's what I got to experience.
So beautiful. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I really do love that part in the second passage where they say each and every day is, shall we say, a replay of that resurrection. I think it is something I have thought about a lot, that, yeah, every time you go to bed at night, every time you wake up the next morning, it is kind of like a small death and a new rebirth. Every day really does kind of feel like starting over, and I have to struggle to remember whatever great aha moments I had the day before and such. So it's a really powerful teaching that I think appears in another passage we're going to look at before too long. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on anything here?
Um, yeah, I just want to share the experience of the bit where they say you need not speak of your resurrection or renewal if you prefer. Allow it to shine and then allow yourself to become the instrument. I find there's great power in not speaking of one's experience and just being a silent witness to all that is, and also um just just witnessing as the observer, witnessing the self, witnessing all that is. There's so much power in that, because there's a kind of acceptance that transcends the acceptance of the individual. I don't even know if I'm making any sense to anyone, but I'm just going to say
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah, no, and I think that's a great callback to the previous archetype we were looking at, which was the sun, which was talking about being radiant. That
yeah,
is kind of what they're saying here. You don't really have to talk about it, just allow it to shine, allow it to be, radiate the love and light of the wind infinite creator.
yeah. And I kind of find that sometimes talking about it actually dilutes the witnessing and the kind of power, I suppose.
Agreed. Yeah, it is really something that is an experience that is often something that can't be captured in words, for sure. Which I think also is something that's going to show up in another passage we're going to look at before too long. Anybody have any thoughts on anything to add on this one before we go on? I did want to point out, if you don't mind, I'm going to go on a little bit of a digression here, just because they are talking about Jesus, they are talking about the resurrection, and yeah, it is really hard not to see everything that they've been talking about in terms of sacrifice and transformation being exemplified so much in the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus that is celebrated in Easter. And yeah, in the archetypical mind, this shows up in so many different places. The transformation of the body, as opposed to transformation of the spirit, was the resurrection image. Transformation of the body is known as death. And in this session, again, Ra said in session 81, question 13, each moment, certainly each diurnal period of the bodily incarnation offers death and rebirth to one which is attempting to use the catalyst which is offered to it. And yeah, for folks who are familiar with the archetypical mind, crossed legs and 90-degree angles have a lot to do with sacrifice and transformation. In the experience of the mind and significator body archetype, Ross said, the cross formed by the living limbs of the image signifies that which is the nature of the mind, body, spirit complexes and manifestation within your illusion. There is no experience which is not purchased by effort of some kind, no act of service to self or others which does not bear a price to the entity manifesting commensurate with its purity. All things in manifestation may be seen in one way or another to be offering themselves in order that transformations may take place upon the level appropriate to the action. And yes, you could see the crucifixion of Jesus being, wow, that's a really intense, powerful sacrifice that did indeed seem to bring a powerful transformation, not just to that entity, but to the world as well. And yes, lastly, the potentiator of the spirit, where the image of the crux ansata is shown. Ra said in session 93 that, yeah, the circle indicates the magic of spirit, the cross indicating the nature of manifestation, which may only be valued by the losing. The crux ansata is intended to be seen as an image of the eternal in and through manifestation and beyond manifestation through the sacrifice and transformation of that which is manifest. Apologize to the panelists. I did not share these with you in advance. You are seeing this for the first time. I thought you had enough texts and passages to look at already. I didn't want to burden you with more reading. But yeah, just the fact that these 90-degree angles and crossed legs appear so many times in the archetypical mind and represent the sacrifice and transformation that we've seen so much in the archetypes of the spirit, I just thought it was too important to ignore. Panelists, do any of you have anything that you wanted to comment on this, or are we happy to just move on from here?
No,
Well, if I may,
sorry,
go
go ahead.
go.
Go for it,
No,
Guillermo.
just a thought or a question that I had. The archetypical tarot was formed before the crucifixion, and see how they already had the cross images there, and then the crucifixion happened.
Yeah, the fact that it's wired into the archetypical mind. There is something about the cross. There is something about that. I believe they said, yeah, the horizontal bar represents space-time and the vertical bar represents time-space, and we're at that intersection of the two. Fascinating. What were we going to say, Guillermo?
I was just going to point out that the lovers are actually being resurrected usually in the transformation of the spirit card. And it's funny because the lovers is all about making a choice. You make a choice and you stick with it. So it's like the fool all over again, just going through from transformation to transformation to transformation. And then you see what the original choice resulted in.
Yeah, and that is one of my favorite archetypes too. Super powerful image, which so much to unpack there, which I unfortunately did not include here. Andy, did you have any thoughts? Anything to add on anything here?
No, nothing I've not already said before. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sitting through that. Let's go ahead and take a look at Great Way of the Spirit. In session 80, question 21 of the Raw Contact, the questioner says, then I would guess that the 21st archetype would represent the contact with intelligent infinity. Is that correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct, although one may also see the reflection of this contact as well as the contact with the intelligent energy, which is the universe, or as you have called it somewhat provincially, the world. Questioner, then by this contact also with intelligent energy, can you give me an example of what this would be for both? For the contact with intelligent infinity and intelligent energy, could you give me an example of what type of experience this would result in, if that's at all possible? Ra, I am Ra. This shall be the last query of the working for full length, of this working of full length. We have discussed the possibilities of contact with intelligent energy, for this energy is the energy of the Logos, and thus it is the energy which heals, builds, removes, destroys, and transforms all other selves as well as the self. The contact with intelligent infinity is most likely to produce an unspeakable joy in the entity experiencing such contact. This was the passage I was referring to when we said something a little while ago about experiences that you just can't express in words. That if you experience contact with intelligent infinity, also known as the one infinite creator, also known as the one original thought, basically God, that, yeah, I would imagine that experience, it's just an unspeakable joy that transcends words, and intelligent energy, I guess, is part of that as well. What do you think, Guillermo? Any thoughts on anything here?
Well, there are two takes on this, trying to communicate something that is not communicable. So one take is like more esoteric take, is you don't speak about it, and those who know, and then you experience it. And then at least from what I know, there's the other take of the Zen or Taoist masters. Instead of trying to communicate it in a very elaborate way or like superficial way or fancy way, they just tell you the more mundane story possible. And sometimes you get a glimpse of what's lying behind Earth. Like before illumination, you chop wood and you carry water. After illumination, well, you chop wood and you carry water. There's literally like no effort made in there, and it still shares something. I think everyone understands. I think I understand something different from that sentence, like as the years go by. I don't know. So,
It's a beautiful parable, one I've always enjoyed and appreciated about Buddhism, for sure.
yeah, so how would it feel to actually be like an instrument and just being played by cosmic energies? Like, I'm an harp, play me. Then,
Yeah.
tung, 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 and I don't know, just get into
Well, and I
that.
think every one of us have the ability to do that. It's just that we're own unique instruments, so it's going to look and sound different for each person.
Yeah, it must be funny. I mean, you're just like an instrument.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll bet it's delightful to Creator, and I'll bet it's delightful to any higher density beings that can see that energy and hear that song, as it were. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, well, I think the Great Way cards, all three of them, mind, body, and spirit, are about surrendering, and actually we don't really have a choice whether we surrender or not. We don't actually know, and everything that we think we're doing is actually done through us, not by us, and it's just the experience is just about recognizing that. And it was so like the great way of the of the mind is the chariot, which is being a vehicle, right, for the creator. Great way of the body is the alchemist or the Athena, the vessel. There's that image of the person, the alchemist pouring, like the channel into a vessel, being a vessel for the creator. And then this one, the great way of the spirit, being the instrument. And there's an experiment that I tried in order to sort of embody being this instrument vehicle thing, where one day last year I decided, right, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and I'm going to pretend I'm an NPC, a non-player character, and just see where it takes me. And it was so much fun because by the end of the day, I set the intention the night before, and then in the morning, I somehow just managed to do it. And because I didn't know what I was doing, I got into that state very easily. And by noon, everything was just like super amazing. Every step I took sent a vibration through my body, and kind of like what Guillermo was describing about his Vipassana, where, you had that Kundalini experience of like the vibration through your body, except it was with every time I put my foot down when I was walking, it'd be like, bzz, and everything became so much more concentrated, like the walls became more wall-ish and the light was more lightish and yellow was more yellowy, and because I'd kind of given up my own agency, and someone said, is that like surrender? And I was like, no, it's not, because there wasn't a me to do the surrendering, and it was amazing. I've not been, because I went into it blind. I didn't have expectations I could do it. But then, yeah, I've not been able to repeat that, only in little glimpses. And
Well, if it
and
makes you
also,
feel any better, you are an NPC in everybody else's video game for sure.
yeah, and there's so much freedom in that,
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, fuck it, just do whatever you want,
Yeah.
and like to give up the ego and to give up the agency and to go,
Yeah.
actually, I'm just a character in someone else's imagination. Just enjoy the ride. Hmm.
Yeah, part of those paradoxes. You are both the hero in your own hero's journey, and you're just some random secondary character in everybody else's hero's journey. So, that's funny. What do you think, Neely? Any thoughts?
Well, I really love that story about the experience you had, Andy, because that's like, to me, it's like the ultimate surrender, right? And just like Guillermo described about his dream and letting go of that last vestige of something you're holding on to, it's just that's exactly it. It's the complete surrender, and I could imagine that that complete surrender brings a lot of peace in it, because I can, lie back into the creator's hands and know that all is well and the creator is taking care of everything, which I think is beautiful, the ability to do that. Also, when you were talking about the three great way cards, I was thinking about how, in the mind, you're the chariot leading, being the vessel for the creator, or being the one that through which the creator moves. And then the alchemist being like the vessel into which it's poured. In this one, what's interesting is that you are kind of the instrument that brings out the music of the creator, or that brings out the creation of the creator, rather than being a vessel or being a chariot. Here you and the creator are actually creating this harmony, creating this vibration together, this creation. And that's like the ultimate being a co-creator to me.
That's very well put. Oh my God. I'm taking note that yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's one thing I always appreciate about these podcasts. I always learn new things. I always hear different perspectives on things, and I always come away amazed at what you can learn from other selves, for sure. If it's okay with you, I think I'd like to move on. This was the seventh and last of the archetypes of the spirit, but there is actually one more archetype to look at. In session 88, question 24, Ross suggested studying the archetypes in pair. So they recommended studying archetypes for mind, body, and spirit, archetypes 1 and 2 together, archetypes 3 and 4 together, archetype 5, and archetype 6 and 7. And they actually suggested pairing the fifth archetype, the significator, with that one known as the choice. So let's go ahead and take a look at the choice. In session 88, question 16, Ross said, the one great breakthrough which was made after our work in third density was done was the proper emphasis given to Arcanum number 22, which we have called the choice. In our own experience, we are aware that such an unifying archetype existed, but did not give that archetype the proper complex of concepts in order to most efficaciously use that archetype in order to promote our evolution. going to look at a second passage too. This is Quo from May 18th, 1997. Quo says, "And so what is the choice precisely? Although we cannot speak precisely, although the choice is always veiled in mystery, we would point in the direction of the will, which is as the verb in a sentence in which the nouns are made of faith, hope, love, and charity. What is the right use of will? The one known as Jesus spoke very clearly when he said, 'Not my will, but thine.' For you see, the choice truly is to surrender. The choice of the fool is to leap into mid-air, knowing absolutely nothing about what lies at the bottom of the chasm of unknowing. One chooses to have complete faith, and thus to remain calm in the midst of this sea of confusion, which is the earth world. This is not an obviously good choice. The choice to believe blindly seems quite foolish, and may we say that it is foolish. Upon the surface of events, such a choice as pure faith shall only rarely be obviously validated by experience, and yet the energy that is released when a seeker chooses to live by faith is tremendous." I suppose that is why they would say that, they kind of discover late in the game the importance and the power of the choice. But as they have said before, it is such a central thing to our third density incarnations, and that making the choice to surrender, to leap off the cliff without knowing what's at the bottom. I think they're telling us to commit suicide, if I'm understanding this correctly. That leap of faith, walking off a cliff without really knowing what's to come, believing that all is well and all will be well in spite of all appearances to the contrary, does seem to be such a central part of our third density experience. What do you think, Andy? Any thoughts on anything from either of these passages?
I like is it the Rider Waite card that you've got on
I
the
think so.
screen now? Because I love that image because there's joy in that as opposed to
I know.
and I think it reminds. I was telling Neely about my recent holiday. I went skiing in France and it was like the most stressful holiday I've ever been on. But it was so much fun as well, probably like the most fun I've had whilst being really stressed because so many things went wrong. Like my glasses broke, so I couldn't really read anything. My phone died, and then our car got upgraded to a worse car because we got snow tires which didn't work, and then we had to drive down the mountain by snow chains and it's like so much fun. Every time something went wrong, it was like something to laugh at. And there wasn't even like in the past, if something goes wrong, I'd be like, oh my God, what am I supposed to learn from this? Why am I having this horrible lesson? But this time I was just able to go with the flow. And when things went wrong, it's just like, oh well, another adventure. And I think the whole point is not to actually achieve a state of transcendence, for me anyway, or to, rise beyond the worldly, but just to enjoy the process and enjoy the shit that's happening and go, yeah, fuck it,
I think
this is
so.
all part of it. There's nothing to be learned, nothing to be transcended, just it's just experience to be witnessed and embodied
Part of
and
the equanimity, maybe, that Guillermo was referring to early, to be able to accept and process all that catalyst, but still be able to maintain balance, to balance all
yeah,
that catalyst.
yeah, I guess.
Challenge for sure. Yeah. What do you think, Neely? Any thoughts here?
Well, I really like again, Andy, what your story about that vacation in France, because it puts together everything that we spoke about today, right? We are walking blindly in the dark, groping in the moonlight, and we don't know if our next step will dump us in a deep hole. But we're using our faculties of faith to kind of center ourselves and retain that equanimity, in face of whatever perceived outer obstacles are there. And really, at the end of the day, we just need to enjoy the ride. And everything that you said, Andy, leads me again to that concept of going within and putting less emphasis, less fuss, less drama towards everything that's happening outside. So,
Well said.
yeah.
Enjoy the ride. That's probably a good takeaway lesson from this whole thing for sure. What do you think, Guillermo? Anything to add?
I think somewhere in the Law of One it's written that although the choice or the fool is like the last arch is like the first archetype, something like that, is the last one to be mastered like
Right,
properly. I've been
right.
wondering like how to really master the fool or like to embody the archetype of the choice, and I came up with this. Sometimes your plans are working out well and you got it very delineated and you got this path, and you know if you follow it through and you don't fuck it up, you might just get what you want and what you plan. And then your heart tells you to just like all goes to shit. I don't know, something happened, you know, you make a fool out of yourself. And that's freedom. It's being disposed to make a total fool out of yourself. Say, hey, this is my path, but I feel this way, and I'm a fool. And maybe, you know, it's not even about the thing that you thought it was about. You just needed something to create instability to stray you out of the path that you were, because for some reason you needed to just move a little bit. And then you figure out this new adventure, and you're like, ha, that's where I wanted to go. I would never have guessed it, but I needed to do something foolish just to
Yeah.
get me out of my own way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think nobody really wants to look like a fool, but I suppose that is part of what was meant by the adept freeing themselves from the thoughts and opinions of other selves and being willing to do something that looks foolish to others. Really good lessons, really wonderful conversation. Really appreciate it, panelists. We have gone well over 2 hours, so if it's okay with you, we can go ahead and start wrapping things up. Where do we go from here? What are some good takeaway lessons we might have from our 2 hour plus conversations today? I got 5 for your consideration. For one, to embrace falsity, to know it, to seek it, to use it gives a power that is most great. That is a line that just keeps coming back to me time and time after again as I see that, apparently from my perspective, being played out in our, let's just say, current events. So being aware of that, I think, to me, has been super helpful. And the whole phrase of groping in the moonlight, it's another phrase that keeps coming back to me time after time as I'm reminded that we're all groping in the moonlight. We're all doing the best we can to make sense out of everything and make the best discernments and decisions that we can. And love Satan. Don't fear Satan. That archetype that is known as the devil, those passages encouraging us to not fear. They thrive on fear. Love it instead, and that takes away the power of it. And that every day is death and resurrection, sacrifice and transformation. And that, yes, the choice is about faith, that all is well and that all will be well, in spite of all appearances to the contrary. What do you think, Neely? Get any takeaway lessons of your own to add? Last thoughts
Yeah.
on the subject?
Let's go back to enjoy the ride.
That's a good one. Yeah, had I thought of this before, I definitely would have added that to the list. Thank you for the reminder. Guillermo, anything to add? Any takeaway lessons of your own or final thoughts?
Well, thanks to Neil and Andy, we started this journey of the archetypes in January 2025. And it's been a ride. I I would recommend it to my best friend, but I wouldn't recommend it to my worst enemy at the same time.
Wow, meditate on that one. That's good. Yeah, yeah. For viewers who didn't know, Neely and Andy have been facilitating a study group on archetypes of the on the archetypical mind. And either of you want to let our viewers know where they could find those videos?
Yeah, I can send you a link and you can put it in the comments if that's okay.
Sounds good. Andy, any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add? Final thoughts?
Yeah, just enjoy, go for it. There's nothing, take the risks, you've got nothing to lose. Nothing to be scared of. Even the fear is just a fun thing.
Well said and deep. Did want to say to our viewers that if you enjoyed this episode, you might want to check out our podcast episode on the archetypical mind, where we don't look at all 22 archetypes, but we look at a fair sampling of archetypes of the mind, body, and spirit, and kind of a nice overview of the archetypical mind. We also did do an episode on the 7 archetypes of the mind in particular, doing a deep dive on those 7 archetypes in particular, as well as archetypes of the body, where we took a deep dive on those particular archetypes with Neely, Andy, and Guillermo along the way for all of those. So I encourage you to check them out. And lastly, yes, we did an episode a long time ago about the whole idea of faith, that all is well and all will be well. So if you're looking for some inspiring passages when it is not apparent to you that all is well or all will be well, check that one out. Otherwise, it is time for Pop Quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do at the end of our podcast, just to end our otherwise serious discussions on a lighter note and maybe look for Law of One connections in pop culture. Since today's episode was on archetypes of the spirit, and since the matrix of the spirit is also known as the devil, it seems only fitting that we should have a pop quiz on the devil in the movies. Panelists, have you seen any of these or all of these? I've seen a few of them. It's not really a genre I'm particularly interested in, but I have seen actually a few of them, and I'm going to ask you some questions on 3 of these in particular, see how many you can answer correctly. Panelists, go ahead, say your answers out loud so our viewers can hear you in space-time, and you who are watching this on video sometime in the near or distant future, say your answers out loud so we can hear you through time-space. First question. In the movie Angel Heart, Robert De Niro's devil went by the name of what? Was it A, James DeVille, B, Richard Belial, C, Louis Cypher, or D, Richard Satan? Which of these thinly disguised monikers did Robert De Niro use in that movie?
I would
I'll
go
go
with
for
B.
A. Yeah.
Nice. All of you are saying A?
I'm saying B. I'm saying
B.
B.
Nice.
D, like Danny.
How do you pronounce that one in B? Is it Belial? I'm not clear.
Belial. I would go with Belial. Yeah.
I believe it is a biblical term, and I believe I've seen it pronounced that way as well as others. Yeah. The correct answer is C, Louis Cypher.
The only one we didn't choose.
Or Lou Cypher, yeah. It's a pretty intense, dark movie. Did any of you guys see that one?
No.
Nope.
Interesting movie. Had Mickey Rourke in it. Goes back to 1987. It's about a guy who basically sells his soul to be a famous pop singer, but tries to renege on the deal and ends up having to pay a price for it with the devil character. But yeah, interesting idea about the person who's willing to sell their soul in order to be famous, and makes you wonder if there's equivalents to that on the service to self path. Are there entities who have done the equivalent of selling their soul or paid some sort of price in order to have fame or power or influence over others? I don't know. Could think of any number of people who I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but we'll save that for another session. How about this one? As the devil in The Devil's Advocate, Al Pacino persuades Keanu Reeves, an ambitious young lawyer, to do what? Is it A, get a child molester acquitted, B, get a billionaire who murdered his wife acquitted, C, have an affair with a woman at his law firm, or D, commit his wife to a mental institution?
C. I think C.
Oh, I can't remember. I've seen this film ages ago. I think it's B. I'm not sure.
I'd
Nice.
say C.
Nice. I believe the correct answer is all but C. I haven't seen the movie in a while, but I remember, if I remember, and from reading like the Wikipedia plot summaries, it's like, Yeah, this is a great example of the devil like trying to tempt Keanu Reeves to stray off of the positive path and to do things that are service to self. So yes, he indeed does get a child molester acquitted. He does indeed get a billionaire who murdered his wife acquitted. He does in fact commit his wife, Charlize Theron, in a very early role, committed to a mental institution because she sees this devil for who he is, but his husband is not convinced. And I think he's tempted to have an affair with a woman at his law firm, but I don't think he actually does it. But great examples of temptations along the way to depolarize oneself, for sure. How about last one? This one I'd be surprised if you guys have seen. In Bedazzled, Elizabeth Hurley's devil grants Brendan Fraser's wish to give him his crush Allison, but A, makes him gay, B, gives him a tiny penis, or C, has him murdered by a rival.
I want to go with a tiny penis.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's A, but I've seen this. It's hilarious. It's such a funny film.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'd say it makes him gay.
Nice. I have not actually seen this one, but I was looking for a funny comedy with a female devil in it, and this is the best one I could find. The correct answer is all of the above. Apparently, Brendan Fraser plays this really geeky guy who works at a computer firm who has a huge crush on one of his coworkers, and he said he would do anything to get his crush, so Elizabeth Hurley capitalizes on that, and he gives him his wish each time in different ways. She gives him 7 wishes, and he wishes for his crush Allison each time, but in slightly different ways as he learns the folly of his previous wish. And in each case, she gives him his wish, but she puts a twist on it that ends up frustrating him, like making him gay, giving him a tiny penis, or having him murdered by a rival when I believe she made him a Colombian drug lord because he wanted to be rich and powerful and have Allison as his wife. So she made him a Colombian drug lord, but his wife cheats on him and her lover like ends up murdering him. So believe it or not, it's a comedy, and it's directed by Harold Ramis, the guy who did Groundhog Day. So I think in the end, Brendan wishes for his final wish. He wishes that his crush Allison would be happy with or without him. And apparently there's a clause in the contract that a selfless act voids the contract. So he ends up preserving his soul and learning how to be more of service to others, I would say. Did any of you guys see Groundhog Day? That is like one of my favorite movies.
Do you have you guys watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? There's the musician who sold his soul to the devil to be able to play really well, and they asked him, he's like, "Yeah, I don't need it.
That's funny.
I had no need for my soul."
That's a great commentary right there. Panelists, as always, it's been super fun hanging with you. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To you who are watching this on video at some time in the near or perhaps very distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love light, and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, Namaste.